Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session for JNUC 2020. My name is Katie Robb, and I'm the Education Product Marketing Manager. And I'm joined by my colleague, consulting engineer, Steve Ragulewski, to talk about the elements of the Apple learning environment. Today, we're going to talk about what's new in education, access to Apple services, and best practices for managed Apple IDs. At the heart of everything Apple does, there's a single vision that keeps us focused, and that's to create amazing products that enrich people's lives. And we follow that same North Star in education. For over 40 years, we've had the privilege of working alongside amazing educators around the world. We make it our goal to help you get devices into the hands of your teachers and students quickly and reduce the friction that comes as part of the deployment process, and to make it easy to integrate iPad and Mac into your school's existing systems. This is even more true today with the new challenges schools face in deploying and managing technology. That's why we listen to your feedback and keep adding new features and tools to help streamline deployment tasks for IT. Here's a quick look back. We introduced the volume purchase program so schools could purchase apps in bulk with a discount. The device enrollment program helps schools automate mobile device management enrollment and simplified initial device setup. And in 2016, we introduced Apple School Manager to bring together the tools you need to get apps and books, set up devices, and provide students and staff with access to Apple services with managed Apple IDs. We also launched the Classroom app that lets teachers manage student devices and a feature called Shared iPad, so schools can provide a personalized learning experience even when devices are shared among students. Then we introduced Schoolwork, an iPad app that lets teachers easily send out assignments, follow students' progress, and collaborate with them in real time from anywhere. And last year, based on your feedback, we added Federated Authentication with Microsoft Azure Active Directory to Apple School Manager. With that in mind, let's take a look at what's new this year. macOS Big Sur takes the world's most advanced operating system to a new level of power and beauty. The latest OS introduces a beautiful redesign that is entirely new, yet instantly familiar. Safari is packed with new features, including quick and easy translation, a new privacy report, and an elegantly designed and customizable start page with more powerful tabs. Notification Center and widgets are now a single view for more information at a glance, and software updates now begin in the background and finish faster, so it's easy to keep your Mac up to date and secure. iPadOS 14 introduces new features and designs that take advantage of the unique capabilities and large multi-touch display of iPad. Stay focused and get more done while you search, use Siri, and answer calls. Navigating within apps is easier than ever before with redesigned apps now featuring sidebars. Do more with Apple Pencil and Notes as well. Select your handwriting and paste it as typed text, draw perfect shapes, and take action on your handwritten notes. With iPadOS 14, handwriting in Notes is more powerful than ever. When taking notes, Smart Selection uses on-device machine learning to distinguish handwriting from drawings, so handwritten text can easily be selected, cut and pasted into another document as typed text. Shape recognition allows users to draw shapes that are made geometrically perfect and snap right into place when adding useful diagrams and illustrations in Notes. Data detectors now work with handwritten text to recognize phone numbers, dates, and addresses, and offer users the ability to take actions like tapping a written number to make a call, adding an event directly to Calendar, or showing a location in Maps. iPadOS also brings Scribble to iPad with Apple Pencil, allowing users to write in any text field, where it will automatically be converted to typed text, making actions like replying to an iMessage or searching in Safari fast and easy. All handwriting and conversions to text happens on device, keeping it private and secure. Icloud folder sharing is now available on macOS 10.15.4, iOS 13.4, and iPadOS. Share folders with colleagues using iCloud Drive right from Finder on Mac and the Files app on iPad and iPhone. When sharing to users with managed Apple IDs within your organization, they will automatically accept your invitation. There is also a global sharing permission setting within Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager that IT teams should be aware of when using shared folders and documents. The iOS and iPadOS feature formerly known as AAC, or Automatic Assessment Configuration, has been renamed Assessment Mode and is now available on iPad and Mac, starting with macOS Catalina 10.15.4. With that, approved assessment developers can now configure their apps to disable certain hardware and software features at launch to meet the requirements for a secure test environment and prevent a test taker from using other apps and invalidating test results. Test takers will be locked into the testing app, and features such as screen sharing, universal clipboard, or dictation are automatically disabled for the duration of the test. This does not require MDM and is initiated by the assessment app. This spring, we also updated our tools for teaching and learning, Schoolwork and Classroom. Schoolwork is an iPad app for teachers and students. In the first release in 2018, we set out to make sure teachers could create meaningful learning experiences by sharing resources they were already using for class, like pages, numbers, and PDFs, take advantage of the apps they love on iPad by assigning specific activities in those apps, and see student progress on activities they've assigned. Teachers around the world have been using Schoolwork, and we're excited to share ways we've made Schoolwork an even more powerful tool for personalized learning. This spring, Schoolwork has been updated with a beautiful new design, and it adds many new features to streamline teachers' workflows and save valuable instructional time. The new Handout Library helps teachers stay organized. Creating handouts is now even faster with a prominent view of app activities that can be assigned. And the redesigned handout detail view for students and teachers presents key progress metrics and clear actions to complete. Teachers can also tailor their instruction based on students' needs, including being able to return work to a student and ask them to try again. Once Schoolwork has been installed on teachers' and students' devices, both educators and students can log in with their managed Apple IDs. The app serves as home base for all the content teachers will assign to their students. Schoolwork helps teachers and students stay organized by showing all of their classes in a library of draft and favorite handouts in the sidebar. The Handouts and Students tabs let teachers easily switch between classes and students. Teachers can quickly see what handouts have been assigned recently or view them by class. As students are working on their assignments, teachers can check in on how they're progressing by tapping into the handout. In this view, teachers can immediately get a quick snapshot of how many students have and have not completed all of the activities in the handout and how long students have taken to complete them. The All Activities chart in the top left displays how many activities in a handout are incomplete, ready to review, or waiting on students to try again. The student data chart in the top right indicates how students are progressing with all handout activities to help determine which students might need additional support or more challenging work. We developed Classroom to enable educators to take full advantage of teaching with iPad and Mac. The app gives teachers an elegant and powerful tool for managing workflows and keeping everyone on task. Classroom can manage iPad as well as Mac, and teachers can use it on either device. It makes it easy to share documents with students, as well as receive documents and links. Teachers can launch a specific app, website, or textbook page on each student's device, and whenever teachers need to, they can mute students' devices or lock iPad into a single app, so students can stay focused on the subject or activity at hand. With Screen View, teachers can view the screen of any student in class with just a tap. With Class Summary, teachers get an overview of which apps were used during class and for how long. Teachers can even help students reset their passwords and assign students to a specific shared iPad for a class period, directly from the teacher iPad or Mac. Teachers can get started right away with Classroom simply by downloading it from the App Store and adding student devices, or they can work with classes created for them in Apple School Manager. Classroom also received an update this spring. The new release makes it easy to configure classes in Apple School Manager that automatically sync via a teacher's managed Apple ID, so classes are available as soon as they log in. The update also makes it easier for teachers to invite students to join by letting them use AirPlay to display the class code to the entire class. And we added the ability to zoom in while viewing screens for the class to make it easier to see what students are working on. Being able to see what students are working on with Screen View is one of the features teachers love best, and I'd like to share a video of one of our Apple Distinguished Educators telling us more about it.
Apple Classroom really allows me to see where everyone is in their learning journey every day. It helps me keep my students focused, and I know what I need to do to support them. It might be a message or a redirection. For some of my students who are struggling, it might be a quick lock to just refocus them and make them take that little break that they need. It's a remarkable way for me to stay connected in every inch of their learning process.
Millions of customers around the world are accessing Apple services such as iCloud, Messages, and the App Store using personally created Apple IDs. Those accounts are designed for personal use and offer some features that are outside the needs and legal requirements in education, such as purchasing apps and music, using HomeKit, and locating friends and family. So, we created a way to let students and teachers access the Apple services that are key to creating a personalized learning experience while meeting the deployment needs of schools and protecting student data privacy. These user accounts are called Managed Apple IDs and are owned and managed by an organization. They come with 200 gigabytes of free iCloud storage and support our teacher tools such as Schoolwork and Classroom. Some features, such as user enrollment and shared iPad, are available for use only with Managed Apple IDs. Account management tasks such as creation, deletion, and password management are done by IT administrators or your automated systems for these accounts. IT teams use them to sign into Apple School Manager for carrying out tasks such as device management and app purchase for your organization. And Managed Apple IDs have the capability for federated authentication with Microsoft Azure, which you'll hear more about later in this presentation. Let's look more closely at the features and services that Managed Apple ID accounts enable for your school. We already mentioned that each user gets 200 gigabytes of free iCloud storage to save the content they're creating and access it on any device. Teachers and students can collaborate in Pages, Keynote, and Numbers to create interactive books, engaging presentations, or brilliant science reports together. With the shared iPad feature, your students get an individualized experience on iPad with access to all their apps and the work they created, even if they're sharing a device. Teachers can use Schoolwork to hand out assignments and follow student progress, helping them tailor their instruction to each student's needs. And the Classroom app can be automatically configured with class rosters, so teachers can start working with their students right away. We understand that to be able to deploy any service or app across your school, it needs to be simple and have the ability to do so at scale. So, Managed Apple IDs have been designed to meet the needs of IT and school organizations. You create and manage them in Apple School Manager, the web-based portal you're likely already using to manage devices and get apps and books for your school. You'll use Apple School Manager to create IDs en masse for your entire community, and you can integrate your existing Student Information System, or SIS, and Microsoft Azure Active Directory. You, as an organization, manage the ID, allowing for password reset and the ability to audit accounts. The accounts are prohibited from accessing features outside educational use, such as purchasing or being located with Find My. Other features are under your control, for example, whether or not to enable communication with FaceTime and messages. And all of this happens with Apple's commitment to privacy and adhering to the legal requirements at the national, state, and local level. Let's talk a little bit more about privacy, a fundamental value to Apple. Privacy is a foundational part of the design process at Apple. We incorporate these protections throughout Apple products, apps, and services for individual customers as well as education and enterprise. We believe in collecting only the personal data required to deliver what you need. Whenever possible, Apple processes and analyzes personal data on the device. In instances where specific personal information is necessary, we minimize the amount we use to provide the intended services, like location when searching in Maps. Apple does not maintain a comprehensive user data profile of a user's activity across all our products and services to serve them targeted advertising. Apple uses machine learning to enhance the user experience and privacy by using on-device processing. It's used, for example, on-device image and scene recognition in photos, predictive text and keyboards, and more. So the device can create personalized experiences without having to analyze personal information on Apple servers. And we're making those same frameworks available to developers too, so they can create powerful new app experiences that don't require your data to leave the device. We always provide transparency and control over your information. So when Apple does collect personal data, we're clear and transparent about it. We make sure a user knows how personal information is being used and how to opt out anytime. Data and privacy information screens help understand how Apple will use personal information before signing in or using new features. For example, in iOS 13, you can choose to grant an app access to your location once or anytime you use it. And you'll receive a notification when an app is using your location in the background, so you can decide whether to update your permission. Apple has developed technologies to help obscure a user's identity when data must go to Apple servers. We use random identifiers so the data is not associated with an Apple ID. We've also pioneered using differential privacy to understand patterns of behavior while protecting an individual's privacy. Every Apple device combines hardware, software, and services designed to work together for maximum security and a transparent user experience. Custom hardware such as Secure Enclave in iPhone, iPad, and Mac powers critical security features like data encryption. Software protections work to help keep the operating system and third-party apps safe. Services provide a mechanism for secure and timely software updates, power a safer app ecosystem, secure communications and payments, and provide a safer experience on the web. Apple devices help protect not only the device and its data at rest, but the entire ecosystem, including what you do locally, on networks, and with key web services. We follow the same approach to privacy with the products and services built specifically for education. Apple School Manager builds the foundation for educational services for schools and is designed to meet schools' privacy and deployment requirements. Schools use it to enroll devices in their MDM software, purchase apps and books for their students, and set up Manage Apple IDs for students to access devices, instructional materials, and collaboration in apps. The information associated with Manage Apple ID is student name, school location, and enrolled classes. Apple School Manager allows fine-grained access control based on role and can be used to enable auditing of accounts if the need arises. Managed Apple IDs are created and owned by the school and come with 200 gigabytes of free storage. They enable students and staff to personalize their device and access key services from Apple, including iCloud Drive, iCloud Photo Library, schoolwork, iWork collaboration, and assignment of books in a way that is compliant with privacy regulations. Managed Apple IDs are designed to meet the privacy and security needs of schools, including limitations on purchasing and communications, no behavioral advertising, and role-based administration. Apple Pay, Find My Friends, Find My iPhone, iCloud Mail, HomeKit, and iCloud Keychain are all disabled. FaceTime and iMessages are disabled by default, but can be enabled by an administrator. With Classroom, student iPad devices can be managed only during class, and no data is stored after a class session ends. Teacher and students need to be in close proximity, signed on the same Wi-Fi network, and in an active class session. The teacher cannot manage or view students' devices outside of school. To ensure transparency when screen view is active for a student's screen in class, a notification at the top of their screen indicates that the screen is being viewed. Schoolwork was specifically designed to protect student privacy. It is up to the school to enable student progress in Apple School Manager. With student progress disabled, teachers can still use Schoolwork to create and send handouts, and students can use it to complete activities. Upon parent request, the school can disable progress for individual students. If enabled, student progress data is only shared for activities a teacher specifically assigns as a handout, and only when students are using their Managed Apple ID on their device. Student progress on any activities that were not assigned will not be shared or displayed. For example, if a teacher assigns her students to read the prologue of Romeo and Juliet in iBooks, and a student also reads The Great Gatsby, the student and the teacher will only see progress on the prologue because that was the assigned reading. Students will see a notification indicating that their progress is being recorded. Now that we've seen how Managed Apple IDs can benefit your school, Steve is going to talk about how you get started deploying them.
Thanks, Katie. Let's talk about the 3 ways that you can create Managed Apple IDs for your students and staff. The first is to manually create accounts. Through the Apple School Manager interface, you can create accounts one at a time. This is a great solution for creating an account on the fly or for a small school. But we know that that doesn't scale for larger institutions, which is where the 2 additional options are really helpful. The first of those is to integrate in your student information system with Apple School Manager. This brings a number of benefits. First, it creates new accounts as the information is transferred from your SIS into Apple School Manager. Second, it leverages course information to create classes with up-to-date rosters, which can be used to populate Classroom and Schoolwork for your teachers. We support direct integration with Infinite Campus, PowerSchool, and SunGuard. If your school uses another SIS, they likely already offer the ability to export the necessary person and class information, and many will automatically submit that information to Apple School Manager via SFTP. Now let's talk about the third way to deploy Managed Apple IDs with a technology called Federation. Federated Authentication allows IT departments to quickly deploy Managed Apple IDs using their existing Microsoft Azure Active Directory infrastructure. When you federate Apple School Manager with Azure Active Directory and a user signs in to an Apple device for the first time using those credentials, the managed Apple ID necessary to access Apple services is created automatically. Using federated authentication greatly reduces account creation overhead for IT teams. It allows end users to use one username and the same password that they utilize across other services that your school provides, eliminating all those calls for password resets. Finally, it ensures that identity management policies are consistently enforced across all applications and services within the organization. And here's an example of using federated authentication to sign into a managed Apple ID. After a managed Apple ID is entered, the domain is recognized as being federated and the user is directed to select Continue. A standard Azure Active Directory sign-in window is presented to the user, and they proceed to log in with the same password they use for other Azure Active Directory services. We worked with Microsoft to make setup simple. It's just a few clicks for setup. To get started, you need a tenant in Azure. Organizations with Office 365 today, even if it's just for staff, have that tenant in place. This extends to organizations with on-premise Active Directory or another identity solution that Azure can forward off to. And finally, if your organization hasn't leveraged Azure Active Directory yet, education institutions can access Azure for free. Just reach out to Microsoft to get started. As I mentioned, setup is easy. It breaks down to 5 simple steps that you can start, pause, and resume on a schedule that works for your organization. You can even choose to federate one domain at a time or all of your domains and subdomains at once. Let's quickly look at the steps involved. The first step is to verify your domain. Here, you'll prove to Apple that you own the domain or domains that you want to use by adding a text record to your DNS server. Second, provide administrator consent. This is where you establish the link between Azure Active Directory and Apple School Manager with an Azure login with the appropriate administrator capabilities. After completing the step, your domain will be locked and new personal Apple IDs can no longer be created. Next, we test that the connection that was established is functioning by signing in with the user. This is repeated for each domain that you want to federate. Then we review conflicts and initiate resolution. This is something we'll talk about more in just a moment. And finally, we turn on federation, and it's available to your entire community. As I mentioned, I wanted to spend a moment to provide additional information on conflict resolution. It's important to understand first why this process is necessary. Conflict resolution is required so Apple can know where to forward the authentication request to for a particular domain, in this case, to your institution's Azure Active Directory instance. Before you start conflict resolution, Apple scans its systems to know how many Apple IDs will be impacted by enabling federation. Please consider that this number is the total number of Apple IDs using the domain, not the number of active Apple IDs. It will include former students and staff members that are no longer part of the community and likely not using those Apple IDs. When conflict resolution begins, it starts a 60-day process. Throughout the process, Apple will email those individuals with Apple IDs using the domain. If the individual is signed in with the Apple ID on a device running iOS 11.3 or macOS 10.13.4 or later, we will send notifications like the one that you see displayed to the right. The notifications are repeated until the user takes action. If they don't take action and that 60-day process concludes, on day 61, those users who have not changed their username are emailed a temporary username to ensure that they can access content when they return to campus. When they select the link in the email or notification on the device, they will be taken to appleid.apple.com, where they only need to select a new username in a domain that is not being federated. We find that a lot of people choose to move their Apple ID to a personal email account they already maintain. Know that the only thing that is being changed in this process is the username. Their password will remain the same. They will also retain access to all of their previous purchases in the App Store, in the iBookstore. And they'll most importantly retain access to all of the great content that they've created and their backups that live in iCloud. Finally, when you initiate conflict resolution, please work with the rest of your IT team to move access to those services to managed Apple IDs. We've detailed how to do that inside of the Apple School Manager documentation. Now that we've configured Federation, here's what it looks like inside of Apple School Manager. You might be thinking, is it possible to leverage Federation and your student information system together with Apple School Manager? Yes, it is. And it's something that we strongly encourage K-12 schools to do. When you do so, you'll be able to take information from both systems. When you do, your school's organization structure and roster data will be matched with Federated users. We identify the same user based on their email address. Finally, I wanted to mention a new feature that Apple has just released, System for Cross-Domain Identity Management, or SCIM. SCIM is an automated process for exchanging information between an identity provider and a service provider. It allows the synchronization of account data between Azure Active Directory and Apple School Manager. Once a SCIM connection is set up for your organization, Azure Active Directory monitors your user directory for changes and automatically publishes those changes to Apple School Manager. Today, this allows for the automatic account creation for a new user, as well as updating of user information, like a name change, and finally, when an account is deleted. Education organizations that already have a process for importing account information into Apple School Manager via their SIS should continue to use that, as it provides classes and roster information. For those without a student information system, SCIM is a great option to pursue. And here we can see an example of SCIM configured inside of Apple School Manager. IT administrators will start this process inside of Azure Active Directory to link back to Apple School Manager. Let's wrap up by reviewing some of the resources available to help you and your organization get started with managed Apple IDs. If you're interested in testing new Apple software, any non-student managed Apple ID from Apple School Manager can participate in our Apple Seed for IT program. This program allows access to pre-release Apple software for testing in your environment. It includes detailed test plans and puts your feedback in a dedicated queue where issues and enhancements are reviewed by a team focused on education and enterprise. The release notes are also targeted for education and enterprise institutions, which allows us to highlight some of the most impactful changes to those environments. Next, we have the Apple School Manager User Guide. This is one of the go-to resources for directions and detail on how to get started with managed Apple IDs. Another resource to look at is the Education Deployment Guide. This brand new resource is written for your schools with step-by-step guides on deploying iPads and Macs for the first time and how to manage and maintain your fleet throughout the school year. Finally, Apple has additional on-demand webcasts available on a number of topics. One that you see highlighted on the screen is on deploying cellular devices and some of the necessary considerations your school might need to make. On the site, you'll find a host of other brief videos that are frequently updated with the latest in Apple technology. Thank you very much for attending this session at JNUC 2020.